So check it out. It's Wednesday morning, and you know what happens on Wednesdays is we have another edition, another segment of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. Appreciate you being here today. And as we do every Wednesday, no, actually we do this every other Wednesday. We bring in our trademark attorney. That'd be Susana Mahady from the law offices of Susana M. Mahady, and talking about trademarks. And Susana, 'tis the season. First of all, welcome back to About Mansfield.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And 'tis the season. How's your March Madness bracket doing?
Well, I don't know yet. I actually didn't participate in that, but I do think that it's very apropos to talk about it, only because San Diego State is my alma mater, and since they've made it to the Final Four, I think it would be very timely to discuss trademarks with the NCAA.
Timely and topical. Now, can I brag for just a quick second?
Sure.
Okay. Prior to the beginning of the national championship tournament, I don't do a bracket either, because that shows that you kind of have to have an interest in basketball. And so really I picked four. I said, these are my final four. And two of my final four are in the Final Four.
Whoa.
And yeah, and you know, it was just a stroke of luck. But San Diego State, because you're from California, I'm also from California, and I threw in San Diego State. Miami was my other choice, but
All right. So who are the mascots for Miami? What's the
from
mascot?
the Gators.
I think it's the Miami
Oh, the
Hurricanes.
Hurricanes. and the Aztecs, obviously. So I've gone out on a limb, and I've got San Diego State to win it all. They're going to beat Miami by 3 points.
How exciting would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, this is pretty historic. First time ever in the Final Four, and now, Saturday's game is it's going to be exciting. San Diego State versus the Florida Atlantic University Owls.
There you go.
I never heard of them.
The Aztecs versus the Owls. So the topic today is really protecting your brand, and how do you protect a brand when you have a mass amount of brands? And in this case, you and I did some research before we started this podcast, and the NCAA owns somewhere between 78 and 120 trademarks.
Mm-hmm.
And which I believe is more than the NFL.
Yeah,
and
it's a lot.
NFL having to do with Super Bowl and all this. How does a company keep track and really protect a brand of such size?
Magnitude, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think this is something we touched upon before, even when we were talking about the Super Bowl. Obviously there are there's several different ways to do that. They are very, very protective of their brand, obviously, because there's a lot of money involved. I mean, just the term March Madness alone, the connotation is already that of, this big tournament, lots of excitement. College basketball is a big deal, and it's really a crazy and exciting time in sports. So you will hear March Madness being used a lot, and when it's used for marketing purposes or with a business, that's when you can get into hot water, because the NCAA is very, very protective of this brand, and they will come after you. I mean, they've been known to be very aggressive in going after bars that are promoting, March Madness events or specials without first securing a license.
Right. And I'm looking at this list that I came across. It's not only just promoting March Madness, but if I've got a restaurant or a sports bar and I want to use the term "the road to Oklahoma City," or united as one. I'm not sure what the NCAA has used for that, but Final Four Friday, Women's Elite Eight, or just Elite Eight in general, or Sweet 16.
Or the big dance. I mean, all of those are very well known, and they have people ready to file. I mean, once they start using a name or a brand, I mean, the first thing that you should do is file for a registration, because that's how you get protection, right? I mean, a lot of people may be using a name and they just sit on it and wait, and somebody will beat you to the punch. It's almost like it's interesting, because I was doing some research on March Madness.
Yeah.
And this was actually a term that originated in Chicago in reference to high school basketball. And it wasn't until maybe 40 years later that it was brought up by a sportscaster in connection with the NCAA tournament. This was someone who had worked as a sportscaster in Chicago and was familiar with the use of the term in high school basketball. And so the NCAA right away tried to trademark that name, but they were beat to the punch by the Illinois High School Association, who originally owned the mark after buying the rights to it from some production company in Chicago. But eventually the NCAA, obviously they're well funded, they ended up buying the ownership share in that trademark from the Illinois High School Association, and they have aggressively protected it ever since.
Wow. Everything's for sale. Under the sun, everything's for sale.
But just the importance of it is that obviously you don't realize how much a brand or a name can grow. And so the NCAA obviously saw that opportunity, and people, if you start using a name or a brand, it's best to just register it and own it so that you can protect it. You don't want to be having to deal with big companies or big entities like NCAA later on in the future.
And I would assume there have been some small companies that, I've got this logo, or I've got this motto, this slogan, and they put the little TM over there, which doesn't necessarily mean they've registered it, and someone larger has come in and swooped it up because that's what they were interested in.
Right. And you may be using it in your small town, but with the internet and everything going, national, or the lines are kind of getting blurred in terms of, jurisdictions and borders. It's very possible that somebody in another state may be using that name and you don't know it. And so you need to, if you register it federally, then you are protected nationwide. But, and you being a small business, for instance, may not have the means or the funds to be able to fight the NCAA, for example. And you should know, I mean, they have gone after some small businesses. I mean, I know there's been car dealerships that were sued for promoting, markdown madness, or I mean, I read somewhere that there was a small Virginia urology practice that was advertising vasectomy madness.
Oh, no.
And they actually, the NCAA came after them.
Wow. And they got snipped at the, never mind. Let's, I was going somewhere and I'm sorry, the urology,
made you think, huh? But just remember, I mean, obviously you can license the use of the name, and that's another thing to remember with your brand, that it has value, because if it becomes something that people want to use, you can license it and make money. And I don't know what licensing would cost if you want to use March Madness or anything similar when you try to negotiate a license with the NCAA, but I can tell you that it's probably less expensive than having to pay for a lawsuit for trademark infringement.
I would think so. Let's go back to Trademark 101. So if someone has an idea, they've got a logo, what's the process that someone would go through to get it trademarked?
So the first thing I always recommend is to do a real comprehensive search. And there are methods of doing that. I mean, you can do a generic search originally through maybe Google or, there's other ways that you can do searches through the Patent and Trademark Office, but those are not comprehensive enough. We use a system that allows you to really comb through, Secretary of State filings or social media pages, anything and everything that may pop up to show that that name that you're using or you're hoping to use is available and somebody else doesn't own it. Because obviously, besides you wanting to register something, you want to make sure that you're not infringing on anybody else.
Here's an interesting question. All right, so I've got a friend who has a business. Now, the business is 4 words, and it's actually a term from the Bible. Would that be trademarkable?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, isn't that the standard answer?
It depends.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, it really depends. We would have to look at what the words are, what the terms are. Are they proper names? Are they, it just really something that we would have to submit and
we'll talk about this
research and figure out if it would work. I mean, obviously, the best names to trademark are those that are made up, right? Like somebody just combines words, something that that nobody else is. Well, you hope that nobody else has come up with,
right?
And are creative.
What's an Adidas?
Exactly.
What's a Nike?
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. What's a Google?
Yeah. And then, as you mentioned back in one of our earlier podcasts, that if you are going to trademark a logo, it should be done in black and white.
Yes, the logos are better. I mean, of course, there are exceptions to that. Look at the Tiffany box, right? We all know what that green color represents. Or Coca-Cola, I mean, they have that red can. So there are some brands that have established, I mean, they've identified themselves through that color that they use in their branding. But for the most part, it's always best to start, with a black and white design, because then you're protected in every color. Otherwise, if you do it in a particular color, you're limited to that color.
If someone wanted to reach out to Susana Mahady to talk about how to register for a trademark or how to protect their trademark or trademark infringement and looking for a trademark and attorney, how can they reach out to Susana Mahady?
They can always find me through my website at www.mahadylaw.com, and that is spelled MAHADYLAW.com, or you can email me directly at smahady@mahadylaw.com.
Susana Mahady, I know you'll be in front of a TV on Saturday, won't you?
Yes. Got to root for my team.
All right. We do this every other Wednesday right here live on Facebook, and you can watch the video on YouTube or LinkedIn. You can listen to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Susana, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you soon.